Hey gang, Joyce with Skipping Calves Farms here. We've got the first sunny day we've had in a few. It's getting close to midday, so the sheep have just come back from grazing and they're cooling off back here. This is what I call the back south 40, southeast south 40. Right over here is the creek. Right here is the corner of the perimeter fence. They've been grazing out here today on Mark and Martina's place. And they have been so generous, and I'm so thankful. It's also helped improve their land. They used to have a lot of what I would call Scottish thistles. They're almost non-existent now. And because of the grazing activity of the sheep and the manure that's going down, it's helping their soil, so they're getting less crazy, tall, woody type weeds like that. So it makes it easier for them to maintain. So I don't have a lawnmower that works. So when they come down, it's a lot easier for them to weed their place, or excuse me, mow their place. So, but that's really not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is I just like talking about the sheep, and they're just kind of cool. And, and daughter's just trying to stay cool. She's just now almost done. You can see this dark patch here on this shoulder. That's the last of her shaggy winter coat, with the exception of a little bit right here on this hip. So she's ready for a rest and to chew her cud for a while. Mom was out there sleeping earlier while the other guys were finishing grazing. But anyway, had a different set of marching orders yesterday. If you're familiar, there's that big bale of hay up by the greenhouse, and the Lord had me come and deliver 3 huge wheelbarrows full. Well, it was a big pile up to here almost. And so this is what I've done here on my most recent chore. And if you'll remember, when I put this in, I put in 2 strips of weed cloth with a couple-inch gap in the middle. The idea of the gap in the middle was to plant tree collards. Now, yesterday, no, it was a few days ago, I started my tree collard seedlings in the greenhouse. They have half of them germinated. I was a little disappointed in that because they were pretty expensive seeds. So they're going to turn out to be about $2 a plant, just from the seeds. But you know, if this experiment works, then I'm going to have feed for my chickens that, Lord willing, and the creeks don't rise, I'll be able to have for years to come. It's a little bit cold for the collards here in southeastern Tennessee, because we do get frost. We do sometimes get as cold as 0 degrees. That's another reason why I put the weed cloth down and I put the hay over the top of the weed cloth. And everybody goes, "Why are you using hay? You're gonna get all of these seeds. It's gonna make a weedy mess." Well, guess what? There is a half a gazillion seeds in the soil seed bank along here already anyway. So there's nothing I'm going to be able to do to keep that weed free, except for the weed cloth. Number 1. Number 2, I don't have any straw. I have hay. One of my principles in terms of what I'm doing on my property, the overriding, underpinning foundation of everything that I do is to do everything as self-contained, self-sufficient, low cost, low tech as possible. Hay is what I had. I was able to get a great big bale of hay for 50 bucks. I would not have gotten nearly the volume of straw for 50 bucks. Straw is like $10 for a little square bale. If you notice, I had a video earlier on how I got that round bale off of my trailer by myself. Didn't show you me doing it, but I told you how I did it. Which is the nature of most of my videos. It has to be. All I've got is me, my hands, my farm stuff, and my phone. That's pretty much it. But so we got a bunch. One of the elderly ladies at my church last year found, what'd she call it? A volunteer butternut vine in her yard when she was cleaning things up. And she said, "Would you like this butternut squash?" It was just a straggler. I didn't even plant it. It was just a volunteer. And I said, "Sure." And I kept some of the seeds from Mr. Silla's butternut squash. And all of these plants are the result of that. Now, some of these plants ended up getting very leggy. They germinated really, really quick. And there was a couple of days I did not go into the greenhouse and look. And by the time I did, they were super leggy, 6 inches tall, kind of white, barely green. And everybody online said, just get rid of the leggy ones and start over. Well, I chose not to do that. I did start over with a few other seeds and that I had, and if you look out here, basically 2/3 of these plants are the leggy ones. What I did do when I had them in the cell trays, I ended up putting a solid bottom tray underneath the cell tray, and I put a little bit of peat moss underneath there, and I kept that peat moss wet. So it would be a very good environment. Look at those guys all bundled up together. Mom and son are lying down, and daughter's trying to get in on the act. Isn't that cute? They're letting each other's ears. The flies have been bad. I'm not. I think it's because of all the moisture. And I know the manure is a bit warmer than it or wetter than it normally is. But anyway, I kept the leggy ones. They ended up doing okay because even they were leggy on top, because I had that damp peat moss underneath the tray. They had roots that went down through the hole of the cell, in the bottom of the cell, and down into the peat moss. So some of those quote-unquote leggy butternut squash plants had roots that were 6-9 inches long when they went into the ground, or actually when they came out of the cell tray and got transferred into a cup, and then they went into the ground from a cup. But you know, the more I try things and the more I'm out here, nature doesn't listen to the internet. Nature doesn't do things that way. Nature just deals with what it has, and it figures out a way to make it work. And you've heard me quote Ian Mitchell Innes more than once. Greg Judy has openly said more than once, pretty much everything he's learned about regenerative ag and or running a successful, profitable ranch, he learned from Ian Mitchell Innes. I know Ian wasn't doing his Greg Judy's grazing school this year, and I got in touch with him via email and said, just wanted to make sure you're okay. And he goes, yeah, it's just getting so challenging to travel from South Africa. And he says, I am getting up there a bit. So he said, with Zoom and everything else, I can really reach people in a really significant way without having to travel. So wasn't able to come to the States this year, but if you can find any of his stuff online, he teaches in a little bit different way, but don't let that fool you. If any of you have listened to what's his name, Dr. Kennedy, he's real kind of homey senator. I think he's from Louisiana, and he says things in a real kind of kooky sort of way. He gets a lot of sound bites, but when you stop and you think about the stories that he tells, there's a lot of wisdom in that. That's exactly what Jesus did. He did a lot of telling truth to people in stories. The folks that preach from the Bible call them parables. And basically, it's like Aesop's fables. They are parables. They're natural stories about truths and making things work. And so, to bring it back around, Ian says the best way to make things profitable is to cut out your expenses. He said you need to cut out 2 pieces of equipment or 2 things that you're doing just about every year on your property. Now he's talking about bigger cattle places, not a small, couple acre plot like I've got. But that thought process, that mindset is what is so important. And so that's why I use hay. Because another story that Ian taught was an example when he was doing consulting work in Africa. And I do apologize, I don't remember the name of the African nation. But it was really high up and it was above the tree line. So the hills, the mountains there, they raised cattle and sheep, and they burned the grass every year because it would get real mature and not very palatable. So they burned it every year. Well, by doing so, they burned all the organics that could have been used to go in and build up the soil. And he went up there and expected to be working with cattle and ended up working with sheep. I think he had about 1,000 sheep. And he put those sheep, because of the lions and everything else, they had to put them in a solid, a secured enclosure every night. And so they had these big fences, and I think it was about 1 square acre, or hectare, I'm not sure. Don't hold me on it. But they had 1,000 sheep that stayed in that enclosure at night. So you have a super duper high density impact of hooves and urine and manure. And they went back 3 weeks later. And there were 3 different species of clover and 3 different species of grass that had germinated, that had not been seen in that part of Africa for 150 years. And he had had a similar experience in California, where folks have said, we haven't had any native grasses in over 100 years. Well, they started doing regenerative ag, they started doing rotational grazing, however you want to describe it. And the grasses just showed up. You hear a number of people online talk about, well, we never planted that. We just had clover that came up. So guess what? Do I worry about all the grass seed that is in my hay? No. One of the teachings, the fundamentals that Ian Mitchell taught and teaches is and I want you to snuggie up here, gang. This is really important. This is really important. He mentioned this several times at the grazing school. He says you do not want to manage for what you do not want. You always want to manage for what you want. What does that mean? That means you don't worry about the weeds that aren't there yet. You take care of the fertility of your soil. You take care of the management of the grasses that you have. You take care of the nutrition of your animals, and you move them appropriately, and you heal the soil. And in the healing of the soil, if you've done any study or if you've heard of Elaine Ingham, she started 30 years ago studying the microbial, bacterial, and fungal ratios in the soil. And all of regenerative ag, from a science standpoint, has kind of come forward from her description of the soil food web and the microecology of the soil. So if you take care of the ecology of the soil will take care of the ecology of whatever is living in it, on it, and from it. So if you don't have unhealthy soil, you can never have healthy plants, you can never have healthy livestock, and you can never have healthy food. That's why the most important livestock on my place is the microbes in the soil beneath my feet. That's why I brought sheep on my property to start with. That's why I don't have dandelions on my property anymore. If you've got a lot of dandelions on your property, you've got a compaction issue. Now, I'm in southeastern Tennessee. We have a lot of clay. Okay? So if you've got a compaction issue with a clay-based soil, my question to you is, okay, is it a physical compaction issue or is it a chemical compaction issue? And you go, Joyce, what are you talking about? Well, if you don't know the answer to that question, it's an important question to be answered. Because your soil health is based, Ian talks about this as well. No, I apologize. This phrase did not come from Ian. This phrase came from Graham Sate at NutriSolutions in Australia. And he's another good one to listen to. The fundamental health of your soil is based on the mineralogy or the chemistry. It's based on the biology or the ecology of the soil. And it's based on the organics, the carbon and humus of the soil. If those three things are in relative balance, even if they're all below normal levels, if they're on relative balance, you can take livestock and management and heal that soil progressively over time. But if your biology and your organics are real good, but your chemistry is such that your let me pull up an example. Let's say your calcium phosphorus ratio is wrong. Or better yet, let's say your calcium and your magnesium ratio is wrong. You've got too much magnesium in your soil relative to the calcium. And I apologize, gang, I don't remember the ratio. I can't remember if it's 35, 65, something like that it needs to be. If your magnesium is too high and your calcium is too low, then it's the chemistry of the clay that is going to be what's the principal foundation for your compaction. It's not going to be a mechanical compaction. It means you could go in there and you could till that thing up, till it 6 inches down, get a big rain event, let it dry out, and right at that 6-inch layer, you're going to have another huge compaction layer. Why? Because you haven't fixed the calcium-magnesium ratio. And there's not going to be roots that can get down below it. So, everybody's just chilling. But this short video has become too long. But it's good information, because the difference between having a place that's a lot of fun, that's progressing, even this little place, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. Why? Because it's progressing. I'm seeing changes. I'm seeing things heal. Do I still have goldenrod? Yeah, I still have goldenrod. But it's 1/3 of what it was 3 years ago. And Lord willing, it'll be less again next year. Why? Because I'm fixing to come in here and weed eat and selectively stress those plants that I don't want here. So I'll be acting as the predator, if you want to put it that way, the predator for those plants. That's what I've done for the last 3 years to get where I am. And has it been some work? Absolutely. Are there easier ways to do it? Absolutely. Are there faster ways to do it? Absolutely. But I don't have equipment. I don't have a lot of cash flow. And that's not the purpose of what I'm trying to do on my place. I'm trying to heal my place using nature as my mentor and guide. So with that, gang, I will wish you blessings for the day, and whatever you do, just keep chasing the dream.